Hi, my name's Erica Noordermeer, and I'm an escape room designer.
And I'm Emily Udell from ShareYourCareer.com, and today we're going to be asking Erica a bunch of questions about her career. If this is your first time coming to a Share Your Career live video, basically what we do is we take someone with an interesting job and we let you guys ask questions about it. What you can do is either comment below in the live video or comment in the comments, that made a lot of sense, comment after the video, and we'll try to follow up with her to answer those as well. For now, I have a few prepared questions that we'll start with, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
So Erica, just to get us started, what exactly is an escape room designer?
So an escape room designer is someone who puts together the puzzles, the games, the interaction, the story behind an escape room game. I should probably explain what an escape room game is as well. So an escape room game is something that started out of East Asia, probably about 10, 15 years ago. There's a lot of debate over where it started and how it started, but about 10, 15 years ago, started out of East Asia. It's an idea or a concept of an activity where you and a group of people, so it's always a group of people, whether it be friends or family or colleagues, are put into an enclosed space that's themed in some way, where you have to achieve a goal or escape within a certain time limit. And to achieve that goal, you have to find and solve puzzles to make your way out. They're tons of fun. They can be really challenging, but people love them. So, yeah.
Now, obviously, an escape room designer isn't a conventional career by any means.
No, definitely not.
So could you tell us kind of how you even ended up in this kind of a job?
Yeah, it's a long story, but the sum of it is that I was helping a company run a charity haunted house, and I did that for 2 years, and that involved everything from crafting the interaction that an actor would have when someone walked into their space, to building the costumes, to doing makeup, which I had never done before and was crazy. It was like, more blood, you need more blood, you don't have enough blood on you right now, I'm just gonna put a handprint. There's never enough blood. To training actors on how to react to guests, to creating scenes and staging a set so that it was effectively spooky. So I started out doing that, and then a little while later, while I was actually working for the federal government as an assistant, the company approached me saying that they wanted to start up escape rooms, and they wanted me to help them run it because I thought I'd be a good fit. And I basically dove in and said, yes, let's do it. This sounds like so much fun. And I worked for them for a while until we hit some snags with the city and construction issues. And then I broke out on my own to just do design on its own, which has been amazing and super challenging, but something that I really enjoy doing. So it's been a roundabout way. It's certainly not what my education would have led me to doing, but it's something that really requires a creative mind and someone who can look at things from a really wide view, to see the overall experience while at the same time being very, very focused on tiny, tiny details. So, yeah.
Now, when I think of it, I would never have thought that someone's actual job is to create these escape rooms. I would have thought, it's the job of the person who owns the business, or it's just, they brainstorm with their employees and come up with puzzles and locks and all these little ideas.
Yes.
So is it actually pretty common for these escape room businesses to hire someone with your skill set?
I would say, just totally guessing, I would say it's 50-50. So, personally, I don't run we tend to use the term facility. So I don't run a facility. I don't have my own company where people come to visit me and play my games. That's not, it's a little bit unique to be a game designer and still, and not have a facility, but I'm not the only one. I have that experience of having started up a company and running games through that company. I also run what I call mini games, 10 to 15 minute games, at events around the city, and so that helps me still understand what it's like to have a person play my game and still watch them and see how they interact with the pieces. But so if I were to own my own facility, regardless of whether I am a game designer now, if I were to open up my own facility, I would want to design my own games. But there are a lot of people out there who open up escape room games because they love the idea and they think they're tons of fun, but when they start to build a game, they go, okay, hang on, I got no idea what I'm doing here. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to make it so that a customer understands that when they pick up, this bowl, it has to be brought over to this side of the room and put down here. How do you get someone to understand that? And that's where people like I come in, where I can create a situation that makes it clear for a guest that they need to do that. So a lot of companies, they do, the owner creates the game and they brainstorm with their employees as they're building it to change and make the game evolve and become a better product. But then,
sorry,
dog barking. But then there are a lot of people who buy game designs. You can either buy game designs like I do, where you're basically just getting a paper product, you're getting a digital file that has everything laid out for it, or you can buy turnkey, which is you're going to get all the props, you're going to get every little component you need, you're going to get the videos and everything sent to you, and you can buy them and then have all the employees come and build it for you. And then within 3 weeks, it's all good to go. And they leave and you open it up for bookings. So it's a wide variety. And it really just depends on who the owner is and what they want to focus their attention on. Whether they want to focus on the building and the game development, or they want to focus on the marketing and the more business aspects. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
And also, so at my work, everybody loves escape rooms. Here in Ottawa, it's actually a really big thing.
Yes.
Erica was actually talking to me earlier about how Ottawa is actually a really big hotbed. Escape Manor is here, and they've been really top of the line and making some really big jumps in the industry and introducing some really interesting games. So for my workplace, we actually love going to them, to the point that we actually tried starting to make our own at work.
Hey, go for it.
And oh my goodness, it is so difficult. It's so hard to explain because you think, oh, it's an escape room. There's locks everywhere. You have a couple clues thrown around that make the numbers you need for the lock. But it's really not that simple because you have to make sure it's not so easy that people are going to be done in 5 minutes. You have to make sure that you're sending people to different parts of the room so it's more interactive.
Yes.
There's just so much that goes on.
Yes.
I think we had originally thought, okay, we'll have one brainstorming day between 4 of us to plan. And it ended up being, I think, 2 months of meetings just to make one escape room for colleagues. It was just absolutely insane.
Yes. It's a very complicated and intricate creation, essentially, and it involves so many more things than just a lock and then a puzzle that's going to give you 3 numbers that you're going to put into that lock. It's so much more than that. And the community, the escape room community, especially in North America, is extremely active on Facebook, and I can't tell you how many times someone will post saying, I've played, dozens of escape rooms and now I'm going to open my own, I think I've got some idea that's really going to revolutionize the industry. And all the people who have escape room facilities and have been open for weeks, months, years are just sort of like, yeah, good luck. We'll be here when you need help because you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. Even myself, as with my designs, I guarantee my clients 2 months afterwards that I'll do any kind of changes they need, because your initial design and what you start building is never what you start off trying to create, is never what you're going to be satisfied with for customers, because you can think you have this perfect design and lay it out for customers, and then they're going to start picking up things and putting them on the opposite side of the room from where you wanted them, or they're going to play a puzzle and they're going to be like, well, of course the answer is 614. That's the only possible answer. And you're like, no, it's 592. How are you getting that answer? I don't even understand. And then you watch them play and you go, oh, I did that wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's so much more involved than just locks and numbers, and it's an intricate, complicated activity for sure.
I find one thing that a lot of the owners of escape rooms, or even the people who are running them that day, like the staff, the way I feel like I know they're an actual good place that cares about their games and the experience is when you come out, if they ask you about it.
Yes.
We did one at Escape Manor where we got utterly stuck, and it's because there was small text written somewhere that was, don't do this until.
Yes.
But it was so small we thought it was just don't do this ever.
Oh, okay.
So we told them afterwards, like, we would have gotten quite a bit further had that one thing not tied us up for 10 minutes, and like they ended up having to give us a hint to do the thing. So we mentioned it to them after, and they blew up the text for the next round. So
there you go.
Doing. So it shows that that first design is never going to be your final design. I think that goes for any design, not just escape rooms or game design.
Yes. Yeah.
So you always have to keep revising, and having a community like you do on Facebook will definitely help you catch some of those things, improve on them, and all that.
Every facility owner and staff, and I should include staff members because the staff members are obviously very much involved as well, has some story of where, you know, they had a group come through and play the game and interact with some puzzle in a way that it was not even remotely intended. And so the you know, they'll have this story and they'll be like, I don't know how they did it or why they did it or why they thought that's what they were supposed to do, but that's what they did. And so now we have to figure out how to stop them from doing that, because if one group does it, someone else is going to do it as well.
Especially when it comes to breakables. It seems to happen all the time. Please do not pull on things, and people will always pull.
Oh God, the stories I hear of they tore down the wallpaper, or they punched through ceiling tiles and tried to climb up.
I have heard that one before.
And they you know, they cut open couches. Where they got a knife, we don't know, but they cut open the couches, and they you know, ripped open boxes that are like made out of solid plywood, and
don't be those people.
Adrenaline will make you do crazy things. And it's not great for the people who run the company, because then, especially if you have a tight booking schedule that day, if you have a group coming in 15 minutes after that group, you're like, oh my God, how do I replace this whatever they broke? It's durability is extremely important for escape rooms. Absolutely.
I guess it's another thing, when people break something, having some way to design it with a backup.
Yes.
I think it was the same day that we went to that one and got stuck. When we walked in, they're like, so someone stole a key in the game before you. So there's a key missing. So we took the lock away, but it won't affect your game at all. We're like, how won't that affect the game? Like, isn't this all planned out perfectly? They're like, yes, but we have the ability to like take out chunks of the game so that it can still work. So that's what we did for you. So it's a little different, but everything should play the same.
Yeah.
So I was like, we're all like, maybe this is why we're all mixed up. They told us we don't need this key unlock, and maybe we really do. But no, we just got mixed up because
you
of
got
little text.
Caught on something else. Yep, that's true.
So for someone who's interested in what you do, because it is very interesting, such a novel idea, how can they break into the industry, or what's another way to do it? Obviously, you kind of transitioned into the industry in an interesting way.
Yes,
But for other people who are interested at this point, what would be a good way?
At this point, I would recommend you get a job at an escape room.
Okay.
For sure. There is no better way to learn how to run escape rooms than to run them. Don't try and just become an escape room designer. I'm sorry, I don't care if you played 100 games, you don't know what it's like to run one. So if you want to become an escape room designer, or you want to open your own escape room, work for one first. Work for one for a while, see what it's like, because you need to know what it's like when customers walk into a space and have no idea what they're up for. You need to know what it's like when customers walk in and they're what we call enthusiasts who have played hundreds of rooms, and they're like, blacklight, ugh, who wants to do another blacklight? And it's like, no, 90% of customers love blacklight. It blows their minds. 10% who have played dozens to hundreds of rooms are like, I don't want to do another blacklight. This is so stupid. And then playing a game and watching people play a game is so different from you yourself playing a game. So if you want to get into the design aspect, or even opening your own company, I highly recommend you get a job in the industry first. They're always looking for staff. There are tons of them out there. If you happen to live in an area that doesn't have one yet, then you should open one.
It doesn't even have to be a full one, right?
Yes, well, that's just it. You can start out small. A lot of people are starting to create escape rooms for themselves and with their friends, and that's definitely something you can do. And it's really easy to do. There are a lot of places online where you can download for free and for a small purchase paper puzzle games that translate into escape rooms.
Yeah.
So get a bunch of friends together one night and like print everything out and lay it all out for them, and boom, you've got an escape room.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of escape room board games out there now.
Interesting.
Yes, yeah. So they sort of take the concept of an escape room and having challenges and things that you need to achieve at certain parts along the way of the game,
Okay.
and translate that into a board game or a card game. They're definitely not the same as escape rooms. They're very different. But you're not locked in a room. But they're still fun, and it's an interesting way of presenting a game and an adventure. So try out one of those for sure. There's lots of opportunities out there to sort of become a part of the industry and start to know more about the industry. And like I mentioned, on Facebook, the community is extremely active. So I recommend, there's a Facebook group called Escape Room Enthusiasts. That's very open. It's got tens of thousands of people in the community from all over the world who are constantly posting. And you can get great recommendations for games in your area through that group as well. So I definitely recommend, if you want to get involved, do it. 100% do it. There's lots of ways to become involved and get to know more about how it works and what works versus what doesn't. So, yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with starting at an entry level to get into the careers like this. A lot of people, when they have this like dream career in mind of, I'm going to be an escape room designer, I'm going to do any kind of big creative career, they think you have to jump right in, and that's not the case.
No.
And usually it makes you crash and burn.
Yes.
That's the unfortunate reality of it.
Yeah.
So take the time to start those entry levels as early as you can.
Yeah.
And build up your skills and build up your expertise and make a name for yourself as well. That will really help you moving forward. It's like, you have the ability to use those Facebook groups, and you have a network that you can build. And doing those things will help you grow that career, so it's actually viable when you get to the point where you can say, now I'm an escape room designer. I'm not a staff anymore, now I'm a designer. To
get to that point where you can charge people for your services or for your product, you want to be able to prove that you know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
So that's key. That's key. And I know that if I were to open up my own facility at this point, I would actually, before that, go and start working for a company here in the area. I would want to get more practice on the lower end of the scale, because those are the people who do the most work with customers, and I'd want to know what it's like, again, to experience that before I were to open up my own facility at this point. So definitely starting at the bottom is not a bad thing, and don't think that you can just jump to the top. It takes a lot of hard work and a lot of understanding, and this is starting to become a really big money industry. And so especially if you want to become a game designer like myself, there are companies who are going to lay out a lot of money for a game design, and if they don't get what they like, they don't hesitate to slam you and make it very publicly known that you don't live up to their expectations in whatever way. And you need to be aware of that. And that's like that in most industries as well. Your reputation is huge, and you don't want to ruin it. So be careful about what you do, and make sure you know what you're in for.
Yeah. So. Especially if you're branding yourself as a business rather than an employee of someone else.
Exactly.
When you're a business and it's your name attached, it can have big consequences when something goes wrong.
Exactly. Yeah.
So along the same lines, what are some ideas for if someone wants education or training that could help them? What are some things they could do there?
Yeah, definitely. That's something that I'm working on right now myself as well. Because my educational background is not in game design or anything like that. So I can really only speak from a sort of, not only, but primarily from a Canadian perspective, as I am Canadian. But there are tons of college and university courses on game design. Now, they are primarily focused on video games, but there are obviously still a lot of core concepts and mechanisms, game mechanisms, that you can learn about through those courses, and that's key. Understanding what a puzzle is versus what an activity is versus what a game is, and what a gate is in terms of a mechanism for a game. Those are all key. The more you understand those concepts, the better you are going to be able to create one in the future. You could also look into business ideas in terms of organizational behavior. Why do groups interact the way they do? And how can you guide a group to behave in a certain way? And that also is psychology as well. So those types of ideas as well, those are also something that translate really well into escape rooms. And so companies are always looking for a game that makes a group do something that they may not have thought of in the first place. So if you can figure out how to do that through psychology or whatever, that's fantastic. So
I was going to say, with the game design courses and things like that, a lot of people think, oh, it's just going to be all theory, but a lot of the times the theory is what you need a basis in. Exactly. Especially when it comes to that psychology piece, because you need to know what makes people interested to even get in the room.
Yep.
What makes them want to start the game.
Yep.
Make them continue the game. Make them finish the game. Like, what are all those hooks along the way that makes them want to keep playing?
Exactly.
And so it doesn't really matter what kind of game you're running, whether it's a board game, a video game, an escape room game.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know what's going to keep people there and what's going to keep them going.
Exactly.
And there's other careers that works for as well, but definitely think of the psychology part of whatever career you're going for, especially something like game design, where it's clearly a big part of it.
Yeah, and I mean, being able to understand what an input and then an output is in terms of game. An input being you need players to figure out that the code is 321, which opens a lock, and the output of that is they open a box which gives them A and B, which are whatever. You know, just even understanding inputs and outputs and a gate in between is key to being able to explain that puzzle to someone else. You need to be able to say, someone's going to do this, which results in this. So yes, the theory is huge. And there are a lot of online courses as well that are available. Some, you know, that can actually give you credits and certificates and things like that. And then some that are more just like less creditable and maybe more handmade or what have you. But regardless, if you're learning about the theory, that's huge. And I mean, I shouldn't even just be talking about classes. You know, there are tons and tons of books available about game design. There's not a lot of literature out there about escape rooms right now because it is still a very young industry. It's only been in North America for about 5 years is when it really started to grow. There are definitely some outliers who have been around longer than that, but I would say 5 years is when things started growing. But yeah, there's tons written about game design, so I definitely recommend you dig into it and you start looking around and finding what you can. So
one good thing about the escape room side of things is because it's kind of grown up in this age of the internet, there might not be so many books on it, but there's a lot of information on the internet.
Yes.
I've found several YouTube channels that talk a lot about game design with respect to escape rooms specifically.
Yep.
There's a lot of blogs and websites out there.
Yep.
So even if you just want to kind of understand a bit more about it, if you're not sure if this is right for you, or if you are and you really want to dig more into it, that's an easy place to start. Most of these things are free.
Yeah.
It's easily accessible. You know, whether you want to watch it or read it, it's all there. So that's another place to start other than the courses and the books.
Yeah,
things like that.
There's tons. Yeah, I mean, I can think of a couple different YouTube channels that'll walk you through step by step how to create, you know, a highly technical prop puzzle for an escape room, and blogs that outline, you know, here are 100 different types of puzzles that you're going to find inside of an escape room, and here's the good way and the bad way to market to people about escape rooms. So there's, tons of information available online, and vast majority of it being free. So you just got to take a look and you're going to find tons.
And actually, I'll drop a link in the comments after this video is done. When I was researching about your career, I stumbled across a Canadian researcher who specializes in escape rooms.
Yes.
And so he is on YouTube.
He's actually American. He's just to clarify, he is yes. So you should definitely drop a link. I was actually going to mention him. So Professor Scott Nicholson. He teaches at Wilfrid Laurier right now.
Okay, so he teaches in Canada, but he's an American.
He's American. When the industry started, and actually when I got involved in the industry as well, he was working out of University of Syracuse, or Syracuse University, I can't remember the way it goes. But so he was working there, and that's where he started. He wrote his first white paper, is what it's called, about escape rooms. And that was based on a massive survey he did. And that was in 2015, he published that. And so he surveyed under 100. I'm trying to remember how many different companies it was. It was a large amount. He surveyed them about what types of puzzles they used and how they got started and what their background was and what types of customers they saw and all those different types of things, and just brought it all together and did a really nice analysis of it all. Now everyone pretty much fully admits that data is very outdated. It doesn't reflect the industry anymore.
It's grown a lot.
It's grown a lot just in the 2.5, 3 years since then. But nonetheless, it's a really great way of looking at what the industry is like. So he did that in 2015, and he's since published, I believe, 2 more papers about escape rooms. But his background is in board games.
Yeah.
And so he focuses a lot on the more educational side of escape rooms. And he's got a lot of interesting things to say and a lot of access to the industry as well. So
so if there's if you're still interested in the escape room industry, but maybe not design or want to look at a different view, I'll definitely drop his link for the YouTube, his YouTube channel, because he explains his own career path there as well. His transition from board games to being more on the escape room side and doing it from an academic standpoint, which who researches escape rooms?
Exactly, right? It's like, what? Okay, sure.
It's basically the exact same response when I saw your career. Who designs escape rooms?
Yes,
I had no idea.
Yeah.
So I'll drop that below and let you guys check that out as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So the next question I have for you is, why in the world are you designing escape rooms?
That's a good question. A question I have for myself often.
Okay.
Why am I designing escape rooms? Because it's fun.
Okay.
It's fun. It's a really fascinating industry to be involved. And so when I left the company that I was working for, I pretty much was like, okay, I've just spent a year learning everything I can about this industry, making connections, teaching myself about game design and all these things. What am I going to do now? I was like, I want to stay involved in this industry in some way. But at that point in time, Ottawa in particular, Escape Manor already very much existed and very much had the stranglehold on the market. That was 2 years ago, and at that point in time, I was saying, don't open a company in Ottawa. There's no point. There's no room for it. And there's been 5 or 6 opened since then. New companies that have popped up, which is continually amazes me. But so basically, when I left the company, I was like, I don't want to open up my own facility. I've seen what it's like. I'm not interested in that, and I didn't have the money for it. So I was like, I don't want to go that route. But how do I still stay involved in the industry without having to run my own facility? And so I reached out to a bunch of different people I knew in the industry and sort of said, what do you think's missing? Where can I still stay involved? And the response I got was basically like, you've got experience with running games and the management side. I think, and the people are like, we know you, we know what you're capable of. We think you'd be good at doing the design aspect. But it's always good if, as a designer, you still run games, so you still know what it's like to have guests play the games and then have to change a game as a result of having people play it. So that's why I still keep my hand in running small games, so I still know what that part is like. But yeah, I do it because it's fun. It's so challenging. It's, I say to people, I spend a lot of time staring into space. It's just sort of like, okay, so I want them to do this, but I don't want them to end up doing that instead. It's like, okay, how do I get them to move from this room to that room? And I want the whole group to move, but I want them to be able to come back later. And it's such an intricate, complicated concept that, I spend a lot of time staring into space. But I also do it because I really enjoy the look on people's faces when I say that that's what I do. Because like you, it's sort of like, who designs escape rooms? And then the more they think about it, they're like, oh, well, of course, someone has to have created this. That makes sense, but...
it's just such an interesting job title when you first hear it, and you're like, tell me more.
Yes, exactly. It's like, what does that mean?
How can you do this?
Well, I lock people up. No.
I make the plans for other people to lock people up.
Exactly. That's a little bit more accurate. It's like, I put together all the little evil puzzles that keep you trapped. while somebody else locks you up. So yeah, and it's because it's challenging and it's fun and it's really interesting to be involved in this industry that's changing so quickly, and is so different from one part of Canada to another, let alone between Canada and the US. As I was saying to you earlier, in terms of market growth of the industry overall, Canada's actually a little bit ahead of the States in some bizarre way, which, if you know anything about sort of Canadian business behaviors and history, that never happens. It's normally the US that's further ahead than Canada. So for a while, Canadians were being held up as experts in the industry. So that's bizarre on its own. But it's really interesting to see as the industry grows and becomes bigger in North America. Within the past year, the Russians and the Eastern Europeans have become aware that North America is growing. And so they've had escape rooms for about 10 years. And so they're all coming over to North America now and are like, here, look at how cool our product is. We've been running it for 10 years and we know it's awesome, and we, here are how the millions of guests that have played this game play our game, with slightly broken English that doesn't totally always translate over well, but they've got amazing products. And so it's been interesting to see just in the past year, all of a sudden there's all these new people coming into the industry and saying, hey, look, we've got all this cool stuff and we're ahead of you guys in terms of evolving the industry. So it's fascinating to have seen how much the industry has changed in the past few years, and it's constantly changing. I'm often, someone will message me saying, did you hear about this new company, or what's this company's doing? I'm like, who would have even thought that was possible? Like, cool, all right, if they've got happy customers at the end, then awesome. How can they have everybody else in the industry doing the same thing? So
one great thing, I think one of the great things I like about escape rooms is how many boundaries they push. Like when you think of a game or a puzzle, you're thinking of locks, you're thinking of numerical puzzles or word puzzles, but the escape rooms go so much beyond that, and it's always changing. I was telling Erica before, there was a scent-based puzzle that I did at one escape room, and it just blew my mind. I had no idea that was even a possibility. When we came across it, we weren't sure what to do with these little vials, and then all of a sudden, someone moved it across their face, and all of a sudden they're like,
whoa,
that was
something
different.
Yeah.
And then we realized each had a different scent and went from there.
Yes, yeah, it's amazing what you can do when you are looking at an input versus an output, and that goes back to the theory of game design. It's like, break it down to the very bare minimum and then figure out what you're going to be putting in there to make that a physical reality. But in terms of boundaries, it's funny you bring that up, because that's something that's really different across the industry globally. For example, the Russians are bringing over a lot of different things where we're like, that will never fly here. We're like, we cannot lock everyone into their own little coffin and then start the game. Like, that's not legal here. Like, that's not allowed at all. And I know I haven't played games over in East Asia, but I have a lot of friends who have, and since that's where they started, the stories I've heard will blow your mind. But then at the same time, it's like, that we can't do that here. Someone told me this story about playing a game where it was her and 3 friends, and they were each locked into a chair around a table, and they had each arm was handcuffed to the chair, and each ankle was also individually handcuffed to the chair. And then there was a mirror in the middle of the table that reflected, so you couldn't see yourself, you could see the other players, and you had to look at the other players and see what was behind them to try and solve the puzzles. But she's like, but we couldn't go anywhere. She's like, if there had been a fire, we were done for. She's like, middle of Hong Kong, nothing we could have done. And I was like, yeah, we can't do that here.
Yeah.
So, but even in terms of from Canada to the US, in certain parts of the US, it's fine for you to handcuff people. In most of Canada, it's very much not allowed to handcuff people. Or you can handcuff people, but they
there has to be some kind of release.
Yeah, there has to be a release, or they're handcuffed to something on the wall that if they really pull on it, it's just going to come loose. And the same idea with being locked in a room. Most of the time you're not allowed to do that because then you're actually technically classified as a jail. And if you want to go through the bylaw, business permit regulations to become a jail, good for you, but most of these companies don't. And so that's why you have emergency keys, or you have, it's not locked at all and you just have to find the key and pretend to open the door. And that's also why the industry is evolving past the idea of being a technical escape room. Your final goal is not to find the key and open the door. It's more like you need to steal the jewel, or you need to find the murderer or something like that. So it's a lot of it has to do with the boundaries that we have in North America that prevent us from doing those things. So
yeah. Something I would never really thought of, but it makes a lot of sense now that you mention it.
Right?
The regulations are very different.
They're very different here. It's funny to see some of the things the Russians and the Eastern Europeans will bring and sort of, post on the Facebook groups and be like, look at this cool idea we have, and we've been running this for, however long, and we're like, that electrocutes people. We can't do that here, so
it looks cool and everything, but
that's amazing. That's amazing. And that looks. I can't wait to go over there and play it, but I am not going to be able to run it here in small town America. So it's
cool, but it's unfortunate that we can't use it.
Yes. Yeah. Your country is different than ours, so that's not going to work here. Yeah. That also comes up a lot in terms of copyright. Because people are always like, I want to do a Harry Potter themed room, or I want to do, people saying they want to do a Saw room, because, if you want to talk about escape rooms, the Saw movies are like, perfect. But you can't do that in North America. That's like, you're going to have Big Disney knocking on your door and shutting you down. So that comes up a lot in the forums of people saying like, how do you do a Harry Potter room without calling it a Harry Potter room? And everybody's like, don't. Yeah. Just don't.
They'll figure it out eventually.
They'll figure it out, and they will come and shut you down, and you will get in trouble. Whereas the Russians are like, look at our Harry Potter room, and we're like, no, we can't do that here.
Thank you for making us jealous.
Yes, thank you for. And they're like, oh, it's not called Harry Potter, but here's the House of Gryffindor and all these things, and we're like, yeah, you can't do that here. Yeah. Sorry.
I will say, I actually kind of like that in a way though, because it kind of makes it harder for you game designers. At the same time, it's more interesting for us as players, because a lot of what I've seen is either just kind of, I guess, random ideas, but also a lot of local ideas. Yes. So there's been things like sponsored rooms where it's all about a certain company, and I'm not going to drop any names here.
No.
But there's definitely some that come
I know exactly what one you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's just kind of neat because it becomes like almost a local thing, and it has a very local flair. And
Absolutely.
You learn a lot while you're in there without thinking of it.
Absolutely. There's a lot of, there's one company that jumps to my mind immediately, and I talk to a lot of people about them, called Escape Maze in Peterborough, Ontario. That they actually do a lot of outdoor games because they are on a farm, and all of their games are themed around something from the area, some ghost story or some old building or something like that. And so it's always relating back to something from the area. And that's such a cool way of making the games belong to that area and not feel like random themes. But also something, this goes back to Professor Scott Nicholson, but also a lot of different companies are starting to do partnerships with historical places to incorporate a game inside of a historical location, and as a part of the game you're learning about the cool trivia or whatever of that space, which is such a fun way of incorporating what can be seen as just sort of regular entertainment, but incorporating education into it. So
you did one at the Museum of Nature, right?
Yeah.
Did that incorporate some of the museums?
Yeah, well, so it incorporated it incorporated elements of the museum, yes, for sure. But
I wanted to go, but I ended up being sick.
Those were tons of fun, super challenging. That's a story in itself, preparing those. Those were easily the most difficult project I've ever had. Okay. But it was making use of the museum space, but making it so that you couldn't take that game and put it anywhere else. It belonged inside of that space for a specific reason. And that was really, really key, was making sure that it was something that belonged in the museum and nowhere else. So, yeah.
So we're going to take a little breather just so we can, take a drink, all that kind of stuff. So if you're watching now, make sure you share the video or tag someone in the comments who you think would actually really like this conversation, whether you're watching live or watching later.
Yep.
It really helps, share her story and also inspire other people to possibly do what she does, because it's such a cool thing.
Yeah, and it's a huge industry. So.
It is, as we are learning.
Yeah.
And then when we restart, we're going to try to focus a bit more on your career rather than the industry as a whole. Mm-hmm. We've been talking a lot about how awesome escape rooms are, and I'm pretty sure most of you already know that. So we're going to talk a bit more specifically about Erica's career and why she's doing what she's doing, how she got there, that kind of thing. And then if you have any comments specifically that you want answered, drop them in the comments. We'll either answer them live, so if you ask them now, we'll answer them now. Otherwise, ask them later, and I'll try to get a response from Erica when I can. Mm-hmm. And we'll let you know from there.
Yeah.
All right?
Sounds good.
We're probably going to go for about 10 more minutes, 10 more minutes. I know we probably talked a lot longer than I thought, but I don't have a clock with me at the moment.
It's like, oh, yes.
Yeah, the downside of using your camera on the smartphone,
is
it's also my clock, and I just don't have it right now.
Whoops.
I did have a laptop ready to go, but it decided to update. That never goes well.
Windows, computers.
Yeah.
I have actually played an escape room game that involved a computer. And
that sounds like it could go so wrong.
When we went to go play it, it was trying to update. And we were like waving at the camera, being like, is this part of the game?
Is it supposed to slow us down?
Yeah. And they were like, oh no, it's not. Oh god.
Oh my goodness. I hope, did you get to restart or pause?
Yeah, I can't remember what I think they managed to close out of it, and so we just carried on. But yeah, it was definitely technology is like the bane of our existence. It is for everybody, you love-hate relationship with technology, but especially with escape rooms, because people are always wanting the new cool thing, which often means technology, which means technology can fail on you for so many different reasons and in so many different ways. And there's only so many ways to figure out how to work around it in an instant. So yeah, it's funny listening and talking to different company owners and creators who are like, we had this, incredible game or incredible prop or whatever, but it just kept, kept flashing red lights when it was supposed to flash blue lights or something random. And they'd be like, but every time we would test it, it would flash blue. And then when players were playing, it would only flash red. And it's like, no, come on. Yeah. And it's just the nature of the beast, unfortunately.
Yeah, so. There's a lot that can go wrong. There's so many moving parts.
Mm-hmm.
So one last reminder, so if you're watching, whether live or as a replay, like, comment, share, all those great things so that more people can get the cool career inspiration from Erica.
Yeah.
All right, so jumping back into it.
Yes.
What is your passion? I know, it's always such an awkward question. What's your passion? Tell me everything.
My passion, I don't know if it's necessarily my passion, but it's something that I'm really passionate about achieving, is when people walk out of the game and go, that was so much fun. That's my goal. That's what I want to see happen, is have people be like, yeah, at the end. So it's creating, essentially what that is creating an experience that's challenging enough to be fun, but not so challenging that the players feel frustrated.
Right.
The fine balance there.
So there will be a written interview with Erica coming up soon on shareyourcareer.com. And in that interview, she had that little sentence there. Like,
oh, did I really?
Yeah. So what is your passion? And it was like when people walk out and they just enjoy it and they tell you they enjoy it, all that kind of stuff. And like when I read that, I don't know what it was. It just really stood out to me as like a really cool feeling. Like,
yeah, it is.
If you create something and then people are like, oh my god, did you see that cool escape room? Like, oh, did you get stuck here? When they start talking about it and things like that, it's gotta be such a good feeling.
Oh,
as
it's
a creator.
so heartwarming.
I
remember I was running a game at a local university, And the way it was set up, it was for a Frosh Week activity, and so the Frosh were playing the game, and then the way the room was set up, there was sort of like an overhead balcony, and so all of the leaders of the group were up overhead watching and like, shouting down, telling the Frosh what to do. But it was so funny because I'm standing there, I'm like, oh, they're getting stuck on that part, yay, that's where I wanted them to get stuck, or like, oh, they figured that out, yay. And then, meanwhile, up top there, the guys are like, wait, did you make this? And I'm like, yeah, I did. And they're like, how do you even think of these things? And I'm like, I don't really understand it either.
It just works.
Just all of a sudden it works. I don't really know what to tell you. But that, that is such an awesome feeling to have, and that's really what I strive for is, and I mean ultimately the whole goal of this industry should be to create an experience that customers enjoy. So, anyone in the entertainment business is that's their goal, movies and plays and whatever. It's to make an experience that customers enjoy. And it's the same with escape rooms. I want people to leave and be like, that was so much fun. So, yeah.
It just stood out to me in the interview, so it was something I really wanted to add. How do you answer
see
on camera?
And see if I said the same thing. Yeah.
I was wondering, you never know. When it's live, it's always a little different.
Yeah.
Okay, so this kind of builds on when you were talking about, like, sometimes things just come together.
Yeah.
How many puzzles or games are you working on in a given day?
Are you
multitasking to the max, or are you like, okay, I have to figure out this one puzzle today?
It depends. So because I essentially am a freelancer, I work on contract to contract depending on what my client is interested in and how many clients I have at that given time. It totally depends. And sometimes I'm not doing escape room work. I'm doing something completely different because I haven't gotten any escape room work in a while, and I'm like, I have bills to pay, so I'm going to go do something else for a little while. But I try, and then if I have an event coming up that I'm going to be running one of my small games at, then I need to be working on the small game and crafting that. So generally the way I think about it is I don't think about it in terms of I'm working on this many puzzles at a time. I'm working on this many games at a time, overall experiences. And then I start sort of visually or mentally breaking it down into different components. But it's always sort of thinking, okay, I'm going to create a game that's, let's say I'm working on a game that's a jail cell themed game. And so I'm like, okay, I know that the end goal is going to be that they're going to prove they're innocent and the bailiff is going to give them the key so they can leave, or the bailiff is going to walk them out the door. So that means I need to get them out of their jail cells. That means I need them to find the evidence to prove their innocence. That means I need them to talk to the bailiff, and then they need to, convince the bailiff and get out. So there's, 3 key parts that need to be achieved. Okay. Now what am I going to, let's start at the beginning, because why not? Let's start at the beginning. Although sometimes I'll start at the end and work my way forward.
That's what we did when we planned our own.
We
tried at the beginning and it didn't work.
I find it works to sort of break it down like that, and that comes back to the game theory as well, is that there's different gates, there's different parts that you need to achieve in order to advance. And this is all theory, because if you think of video games, it's the exact same thing. There's different parts that you can't move forwards until you accomplish this first. So I break it down into that, and then it's like, okay, well then how do I want them to find the key to get out of the jails, and how many people are in the jail cells, and so do I want them all in one jail cell, or do I want them all in individual jail cells, or because also this is a group game. This is a group activity. It's not like a video game where you're one solitary, except for cooperative games, but escape rooms are very different because you have groups and you have physical people, and so you have to have physical elements that they're going to be picking up and interacting with. And so you need to figure out, how am I going to have more than one person use this stick to get the key off of the wall and then pass it along between the jail cells? It has to be something that needs more than one person to interact with it. Otherwise, you end up playing a game where one person's doing all the work and everybody's just like peering over their shoulder, and that's no fun.
No,
it's no fun at all. So yeah, it's breaking things down, and it's thinking of things in terms of, okay, what do I want them to end up doing? And then it's like, okay, now how do I want them to do that? what kind of a puzzle am I going to incorporate here? Have I already done a puzzle that requires them to, follow a pattern? Well, then I don't want them to do a pattern again later on. I want them to do something else. So, yeah.
So when it comes
big
to
and complicated.
so the small answer to that question being whether you work on one game or puzzle at a time or more than one,
yes,
kind of comes down to the number of contracts and what you need to do for them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's probably a good, concise way of putting it.
Okay. Yeah, it's nice to talk about your career.
Yeah.
So earlier you mentioned that your educational background is not anything related to escape design. So can you tell us what it is in?
Yes. So I studied international development and globalization.
Ah, me too.
Hey!
I did international economics and development.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. So I did that in French immersion. So I did my program half in French, and then I did a minor in business administration.
Okay, so there's at least something there that was
there's
clearly helpful.
A bit that ties, yes, yeah, but otherwise, like I sort of described earlier, and how I sort of got into this industry, I just kind of fell into it. I couldn't find a job in that industry at the time that I graduated, or for several years afterwards. But let's not get into the politics of why that is, and Harper government. But anyways, while I didn't study game design or game theory or psychology, there's still skills that I learned through the course of my education that translate into it. Being able to look at the big picture is huge, and being able to understand a big picture, look at it and be like, okay, I understand why this is causing this to happen, which is affecting this over here. And then also being very detail oriented and in the minutia, that's extremely important. And then the business administration as well is probably the most relevant material, but it was more just this was something that I was interested in and was a lot of fun, and I, in a related way, had some experience in with the haunted house as a form of themed entertainment. I just kind of fell into it, and I really enjoy it. So
okay, yeah. And so one thing I mentioned too with the development programs, the international development globalization side. At least, did you go to Ottawa U?
Yeah.
So at Ottawa U, it's a very cooperative program.
Yes.
There's a lot of teamwork, a lot of group projects, a lot of presentations.
Oh God.
So
yes.
you get a lot of experience with communication.
Yes.
Which
that's true.
I think would probably play a really big part as well.
Yeah.
That was one thing, because I had the economic side, which is very individual project based, and then I had the development, which was very co-op based.
Co-op and group.
It was a very interesting duality for me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, bringing in technical words.
Well, I mean, even me, I'd have my international development courses, and then I'd go and do a business course, and I'd be like, oh my God, if you ask these people to write a 25-page essay, like I have to do in my class that starts an hour and a half after this, they'd be like, they would lose their minds, and so, yes, it's having that complete opposite sort of types of education and be involved in that type of academia was really interesting and eye-opening for me in terms of seeing how people think and how people react to being in groups and things like that. So that's definitely, that can definitely relate to what I'm doing now as well. Yeah.
So this question's not on our pre-planned list at all. But so for me, part of the reason I did a mixed degree, so the development and the economics, was because I didn't want to rely solely on one.
Right.
Coming from a smaller town, I didn't know what jobs would be available, and I wasn't really convinced that the international development side would have a sustainable career for me, especially since I had no experience with it other than working with charities on the low end as a volunteer. And then the economics, I knew there were a lot of jobs because there's the government here, there's a lot of businesses that hire economists. You can also get into statistics, which is where I ended up going. So did you choose it for a similar reason, the mix of development and business? Or?
So I picked up, I started in development because it was what I was passionate about. I was, the bright-eyed, want to change the world
Everyone
type of person.
enters that program that way.
Yes.
Not many leave that way.
Yes.
Let's be honest.
I still am like, I want to change the world, but so differently than I did before.
I do it differently. That's why I do share your career.
Yeah, there you go. But I ended up picking up the minor in business administration, I think in my second year, because I found the development to be very heavily theory-based.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I need something that's more practical. I need to prepare myself for the fact that when I leave university, I'm not going to be able to get a job based on the fact that I can describe very clearly how the neoliberalization theory affected, sub-Saharan Africa. That's not going to get me a job. And if it does, it's going to be in academia, and that's not I knew pretty quickly that was not the route I wanted to take. And so that's why I picked up the business administration. I was like, I need to know more about, like, how do you do a balance sheet? How do you, write a marketing plan? So yeah, I was like, I need more of the basics of the actual organizational aspects. And I encouraged a lot of people in my program, and a lot of my friends as well, to take some business courses, because especially in development, 10% of the work is what they call field work, on the ground, doing research, yada, yada, yada. But right there, doing research, that's going to require you to write grant proposals, to put together hefty, large documents that are full of words that have nothing to do with the work that you're going to be achieving on the ground.
Project management, project evaluation.
Exactly. And so, 10% of international development work is actually field work. The other 90% is administrative. And so that's why I picked up the business. I was like, I need to know how to do all that other stuff. Otherwise, I'm going to be lost.
Yeah. Taking it a bit away from the international development and all that stuff, because I know what we're here for.
Let's go back to escape rooms.
Just before we jump there, I just want to leave a note. So if you're going to school, and not everyone needs to, that's my take on it, not everyone needs to go to university, college, any of that. If you are going and you're trying to figure out what courses to take, or like how to orient your studies, I highly recommend, and by the sounds of it you do too, take some courses that are going to give you some actionable information. So business courses, communication is what I ended up taking. I also did project management and evaluation because I knew it would be helpful. A lot of the computer studies classes nowadays are really important, or digital studies.
Yeah.
Take something that has something that you can directly apply to a workplace. Even if it's not in the field you're interested in or want to do, something that gives you a skill will help you beyond measure.
Absolutely. And something I often say to high school students and friends or whatever who are thinking of going to school or getting ready to go to university or college or whatever is, don't worry about what program you start out in.
Yeah.
You can end up in something completely different very easily. Don't stress out too much on being like, I need to pick, I'm going to be locked into studying sociology because that's what I applied for and that's what I got into, and so I'm going to have to graduate with a degree in sociology. Oh, heck no. I mean, the amount of friends I am probably a rarity in that I graduated with the degree in the field that I entered in. Most of my friends went all over the map. So it's
you usually have some electives to play with anyways. So
most
of the time you can transfer at least a couple of the classes you took in first year that won't apply to the new degree you're changing to.
Yeah.
You can use those as electives so that you're not losing all of your first year.
Yeah.
You might have to take an extra semester or two just in case. But most of the time you'll have something that carries forward.
Yeah, for sure.
You're not losing out completely.
No.
And talk to your guidance in like the school, they'll help you make it work.
Yep, for sure.
All right, so now back to escape rooms.
Escape rooms, yeah!
So do you have any other advice for people who are interested in getting into the industry?
Well, I mean, play as many escape rooms as you possibly can.
Hard one.
That's like step number one. If you want to be involved in the industry in any way, it's just to play as many as you can and go outside of your city if you can. And if you can't, or either way, if you can or you can't, there's tons of online, what we call point and click escape room games. These are obviously not the same as real life escape rooms. For the longest time, we had to differentiate. We had to say real life escape room games versus the online escape room games. But those have been around for decades, and they're the types of things where, like, you move your mouse around the screen until it changes from an arrow to a little hand, and then you click on it and it's like, oh, you've picked up a basket or something. And then you have to move it over here and you have to put the basket here. There are hundreds and thousands of those tiny little flash animated point and click escape room games that are still really fun and still can give you a lot of ideas for escape room games. It's just you have to think about it more realistic and be like, okay, so you picked up a basket. Okay, well now you have to remember to hang on to that basket for the rest of your hour game, because otherwise, you're obviously going to need it somewhere. But so there's the point and click games. Go out, play different games. The more you play, the better it is. You get a better understanding of what you like and what you don't like, and which friend is better at doing what type of puzzle. And then like we mentioned before, there's tons of different ways of learning about game theory and game design concepts, online, offline, in schools. Talk to people. Like I said before, the community is extremely active on Facebook. It's shocking. And so there's lots of opportunities to be like, hey, people constantly post like, I'm trying to set one up for a bunch of friends. I have this idea, but I'm stuck on this puzzle. Does anyone have any ideas? And you'll get tons of responses saying, you should do this or that, and blah, blah, blah. Or I'm traveling to this city. Does anyone have any recommendations of games to play? Or I'm traveling to this city, but I'm by myself. Does anyone want to play a game with me?
I imagine you could also post something there like, I'm interested in getting into escape room design or escape rooms as a career. Yeah. Like, and find potential mentors and such through there.
Yeah.
Mentors are a great way to get it.
They'll probably quite quickly tell you to work for an escape room. That'll be like step number 1. Well, no, step number 1 is play games. Then step number 2 is get a job at a company. But yeah, it's a great community, and while it can be a little cranky because you do have to remember that as much as the community is active on Facebook, it is still a business, and so there are some secrets that they are not going to share, and there are some questions that they will not answer, and you can't fault them, you can't get mad at them for that. So make good use of the search button on Facebook groups. I can highly recommend that for any type of Facebook group. Make good use of the search button before you post something, because otherwise you're going to get the response that says,
search the group.
5 people have already asked this before. Here's the links to their conversations. But yeah.
Okay. So you also work from home?
Yes.
Mostly?
Yep.
How do you do you like working at home? What's it like? That kind of thing.
Do I like working from home? Yes. Is it efficient? No. So I like working from home because it's got tons of advantages. It's not very efficient though, and I don't think I would really recommend it. I try and get out as much as possible. I make good use of the public library and coffee shops and things like that. I don't even need to be talking to other people. I just need to be around other people that are working, or even just out of the space that's like, oh, my bed's just, through that doorway over there. I can just watch some TV or go.
I'll just take a 5-minute break and then you pass out for 3 hours.
Yeah, I was like, I haven't cleaned the bathroom in a while. Why didn't I do that? And then you clean the bathroom and then the day's over and you're like, well, crap.
Yeah.
So yeah, I enjoy working from home, but it has its heavy downside. So I wouldn't recommend it unless you are perhaps more diligent than I am on staying focused.
And look at your options. If working from home is something you're actually interested in, whether you work for a company or you work for yourself or you want to work for yourself, look into the options, because you don't necessarily have to work from home. You can, like you said, work in a public place. There's also a lot of like co-op working spaces opening up. I don't know, a collab space, HubSpots, those kind of things. Basically where you have a spot, you can sit, there's other people around, you don't have to work together, but you're around people. A lot of times people will also try to collaborate in those spaces, but it's not necessary. Yeah. There's also like rentable offices and things like that.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You have options.
Working from home definitely has its advantages, and you can definitely save a lot of money that way. And you don't have to have a co-working space to work outside of home. But then there are costs involved in that. Every time I go to a coffee shop, I have to buy something when I go to the coffee shop. So, here's $6, $7 there over and over again. Luckily, the library is free, but even still, like if I'm going to sit at the library for a couple hours, I'm going to need food with me. So whether I bring it from home or buy something. And anyway, so there's pros and cons. You have to figure out what's going to work for you. And, you know, depends on your own personality and your own way of working. So, yeah.
An easy way, well, not easy, but one way to partly figure out how you think you'll do with it is think about how you study with school.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm better at studying at home or studying in a small group of people.
Yeah.
I could not study in a library. It was terrible for me every time I tried. I would sit there for like 3 hours and get absolutely nothing done, and then go home and read 4 chapters of a book, no problem.
So work from home for you.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice?
Yeah.
I do it part-time. So yeah, consider how you work when it comes to school first, and think about that and how that might transition into like a workplace environment. Yeah. All right. What is your favorite puzzle? Whether you've played it or designed it.
Oh, so I saw that on the list when you sent it to me before, and
I think
was
I had it as separate questions.
I have no idea what my answer is.
You don't have to have one.
Yeah, no, I know. I really enjoy puzzles that actually involve more than 2 people. That physically require you to have 2+ bodies. It's not like you need one person to put everything in place and then another person to think about it. Like, that doesn't really count. One person could do that. I like stuff that physically requires more than one person.
Like being in different places and calling out.
Exactly.
Kind of
Yes, being in different places
They're
and
also
calling
the most
out to each other.
ones.
They are, but they're the most effective demonstration of teamwork. And that's what makes escape rooms, is being able to force people to work with each other. So those are the ones I enjoy the most. My favorite one, oh man, I don't even know.
But no spoilers.
Yeah, I know, right? I really enjoy, I mean, there's one game in particular I played that I hold up as being my favorite in my mind. It's called The Unknown in Toronto. If you've heard of it, it's called The Unknown for a reason. Nothing's known about it. It doesn't have a story description to go along with it. It's, if you've played it, you know, you don't tell anybody about it. But it's a horror game. It's targeted for being 18+, that it is scary. If you are easily scared, don't play this. In fact, one of the people who I played with ended up leaving the game because she was so scared.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty hilarious.
Sorry guys, can't do it. Bye.
Yeah. It was more like, you're running. Yeah, that one I hold up in my mind as being hilarious, and it had one way of, you were receiving information and then it had to be passed along through multiple people to be finally used. And I know I'm being very cryptic in this explanation, and I'm sorry.
Cryptic's good.
But it was done in such a way that you were, because it also had the horror element, you were like, I don't know whether I trust what you're telling me or not. Is the right answer. And I don't know if that's what we're supposed to do or if we're supposed to do something else. It was the perfect way of just sort of messing with your mind. And like, it was an hour-long game, like just 60 minutes, and the whole game long you're in this heightened state of tension and awareness. And it's like that for most escape rooms, you know. Once you put someone under a clock, their adrenaline just shoots right up, and so you're like, I am focused and I'm gonna get something done and I'm so excited and oh my god, the clock is ticking and we're running out of time.
Except for some people, it ends up being, oh my gosh, I have to do this in such a short time. Breakdown.
Yes, yeah.
I've been in one of those situations with other people. Like, come on.
Yes, I've seen that as well. It's like, I can't handle it. And you're like, no, please just.
They start saying things that just literally make no sense at all. And you're like, didn't you know what we were getting into?
No, did you know what we were doing? Yeah, so that game is really good at creating an immersive experience, and so you really felt like you were in this different place, and you were being, and things were happening, and you were going to be affected by them, and it just was a fantastic overall experience. And so it had that fun way of involving teamwork, but then this extra added sort of mental play in a way that you were like, I don't know if I trust you right now. So yeah, but overall, like, the games I really enjoy are the ones that are real escape room puzzles, and so you physically require more than 2 people. And that's something that a lot of escape rooms have to use as sort of like a phrase because you always get couples who want to play a game by themselves. And this speaks to something that's unique to Canada versus America, where in Canada, most companies, Escape Manor is an exception, but most companies, when you play a game, when you book a game, you book and then no one else can play with you. You're booking a private game. Whoever's in your group, that's who's going to play. Whereas much more common in America, the US, and unusually Escape Manor, but they're, like I said, they're an outlier for Canada. But most of the time in the US, when you book a game, you're booking 4 tickets out of 10.
Yeah.
And so strangers can play with you. And so that can change the game dynamics, and that can change how you play the game. But so with Canada having this sort of commonality of private games where when you book, you're the only people who are going to play, you'll often have couples book a game, and the description will say, you know, it's recommended for 4 to 6 players, and you'll have a couple who just wants to play, and the escape room company will have to be like, no, you need more than 2 people. And they're like, no, like, we're going to solve this, no problem. And it's like, no, there's a puzzle that physically requires 3 people or 4 people or whatever. And they'd be like, no, it's fine. It's like, no, it actually, like, I can think of one puzzle, and then this isn't a spoiler in any way, but it actually required you to have one person on one side of the wall put their hand on something, and then you had to join hands across the room and put someone's hand on the other side of the wall.
So a human chain of 4 people.
A human chain, yeah. And if you did not have long enough arms to connect all the way, you would not move forwards. And so you physically required a certain amount of people. And that can be a downside if you want to play with a couple, but that just adds to the effect of, like, that's an actual teamwork game. You physically require multiple people to complete the game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's something that comes up a lot is whether a group game or a group puzzle that requires multiple people is actually something that physically requires people, or it's just like it's challenging and so you need more than one person to think about it. So
yeah. And I think most people, like, when you're playing the game, you assume you just want 4 because you're telling me it's difficult.
Yeah.
And in some cases that's true, but like you said, a lot of the game rooms will try to have something that requires more people.
Yeah.
Literally requires.
It literally requires more than one.
You
Or
need
it's like
4 bodies.
There's a puzzle upstairs and then there's a puzzle downstairs, and you need to be playing each of them and then talking to each other as you get results.
Yeah.
Like,
or escape rooms that are actually multiple rooms, and for some of the puzzles you need to have one person in each room calling to each other.
Exactly. Yeah. And so those are the times where it's like, no, I understand you want to play with just the 2 of you, but you will not win the game.
Yeah.
Like,
you will get stuck halfway through.
It is impossible. Sorry.
Okay, and so for the last one, again in your written interview, you mentioned the importance of networking.
Yes.
Can you tell me how that impacted your career? And I'm saying this because I have a little plug at the end that I want to do. So can you just tell me, like, so why do you think networking is important? How has it been important for your career specifically?
Okay, so networking is huge. No matter what industry you're in, it's so incredibly key. And even if you are a diehard introvert and you are like, I don't want to talk to anyone that I don't know ever. Oh my God, I have to talk to people. Me too. You gotta suck it up to succeed. Not always, and it depends on the industry, and obviously there are caveats. And
it can help a lot. Any industry.
It can help a lot.
It's not necessarily required. It can help a lot.
Yes, yeah. But so networking for myself has been huge. It helps that the industry is so active on Facebook. And so there are multiple groups that I am a part of where owners and designers and players are posting questions, are posting about their games, are posting about events. And so I can pop in and answer a question or give a question and be like, why did you decide to do this with this cool new game you're advertising? Or why, that looks super cool, where are you located, blah, blah, blah. And so having my virtual presence out there helps. Having people know who I am, and if I'm someone who answers a lot of questions, then like, oh, she knows what she's talking about. Awesome. So that's huge. Going to the different events. There are occasionally, a couple times a year, there are different conferences and things like that that talk about escape rooms and trade shows that sell escape room pieces and things like that. So going to those and attending those is the exact same idea. It helps that it's a really fun industry, and I've become really good friends with a lot of owners, and so when I do get to meet with them, all we do is talk about escape rooms, but like it's so much fun to do that, and I walk away with so many cool ideas and inspiration for me to bring back to my clients. So
it makes you want to reach out more.
Exactly, and at the same time be like, yes, this is why I love this industry, because the people are super cool, they're so creative, they come up with ideas that I never would have thought of, and they're happy to share these ideas. Now that depends, and that's, not all owners are like that, for sure. But like any industry, you do have to remember it is a business. And so there's some stuff they're not going to share, and that's fine. I have an advantage of not being a facility owner. And so I'm never trying to steal business from someone, essentially. Like, I can talk to owners of Escape Room YZ, and they will tell me what their business problems currently are. And I'm not going to be opening up Escape Room ZY 2 doors down from them and solving that problem and stealing all their customers.
Yeah.
They're confident that I'm not trying to take away business from them. So I'm, unique in that way, that I'm not competition. But even still, the escape rooms is an interesting industry where repeat business is difficult. And so you're better off being friendly with other companies, so that you can, when you have a guest who's played all of your rooms and it's like, what am I going to do now? Like, you should go play this company. Yeah, they're my competition, but you've already played all of my rooms, and you can't really play an escape room again. That's a problem in the industry, and many designers will claim that they've solved that problem, but no one really has yet. So you can't just tell that client or that customer, like, well, you'll just have to wait until we open a new one. Like, that's not a reasonable answer. So a better answer is to be like, I've played company whatever, their games are awesome, you should go and play theirs. And you're on our mailing list, right? So you're going to know when we open up our next one. You're not on our mailing list? Sign up for our mailing list, So it's networking and being a part of the community. It's not only good for putting my name out there as someone who knows what I'm talking about and can create a product, but it's also good for knowing what's going on in the industry, what the current issue that a lot of companies are having, or how the market is changing. And so, guests are starting to not like black lights anymore. They only want to do this, or nobody wants to go play a game that uses combination locks anymore. They only like being on top of what's going on and understanding what the market is like. The only way to do that is to network and talk to people. So as much as it makes me cringe a lot, and I'm like, I don't want to talk to people that I don't know, online helps. Online helps a lot, and then in person is still super uncomfortable, but it's something you have to do. And after the first awkward, like, hi, my name's Erica, how you doing? Then you start talking about escape rooms and you get really excited about it. So
thank you for battling it and coming in and talking with us.
Yes, well, this is easy. It's like I'm just talking to you, so.
We didn't really know each other before this. We had each other on LinkedIn. I'm assuming from something at U Ottawa.
Probably, so, yeah. There has to be a connection there.
Yeah, I used to be a co-op rep there, so it might have been something related to that.
Okay. Yeah, I did co-op, so.
Okay, so it's probably something related to that. So we didn't really know each other personally, though. I just saw her job title on LinkedIn and went, hey, can I interview you?
Yeah.
And then she showed up at my house and we did this.
Yeah.
So, it can be awkward to reach out, especially if you're an introvert. But it's worth it. You get a lot of great information, like she said, knowing the trends of your industry. If you're a student or a recent grad who's looking at getting into a certain industry but still have a lot of questions, it's a really good way to ask people, what skills do I need to get into this? What education or training can I do to set myself apart from other candidates when it comes to jobs? What's something I can do to distinguish myself from other people? Yeah. So those are really good questions that you can ask anybody that's in the industry, and just a matter of doing that first, reaching out to them.
Yeah, reaching out is hard, but it's essential. Yeah. I've gotten all of my jobs, all of my contracts and clients from networking. So it's you have to reach out. It sucks if you are uncomfortable doing that, but you've got to do it. And I mean, even if you're an extrovert and you're like, oh, I want to meet everybody, you know, it's still, then maybe it's a bit of toning yourself down and being like, okay, hang on a second. I'm not trying to meet everybody in the world. I'm trying to meet people who can help.
Yeah.
Or I can help them, and be the, you know, on and on. So it's putting yourself out there and being aware of what's going on, being aware of, like you said, the trends. Talking to people. It's huge.
Yeah. So with that, like I said, I had a little motivation behind that question, and that is, as of now, you can sign up for a free email networking course from Share Your Career. Ooh. So it's targeting students and recent grads, as well as just youth in general, because we recognize that it's important to start networking early. It helps you figure out what career ideas would be a good fit for you, get some inspiration. It can help you, like we mentioned earlier, knowing the trends of the industries you're interested in, or what skills or education you need. So this whole course, and it's just 5 lessons, it's spread over 5 weeks, but it's actually only an email a week. We do that because we know students are busy. So yeah, basically it's oriented towards you guys, the students and the recent grads, because we know you're different. You're not a business person who needs to reach out to all of these people and build these huge networks of a bunch of different industries. You don't really need that at this point. You need people who can help you where you are right now. And you need to know what you're looking for right now. So that's where we're starting. That's our little take on it. So if you want to sign up for that free email course, you can go to our Facebook page. The sign up button at the top is currently set up, so you hit that and you're going to register. And I'll also drop a link in the comments around this section that will take you to the landing page where you can just sign up with your name and email. And I believe the first lesson will go out on the 29th of January, so about a week from now. And yeah, that was my shameless plug.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I use the phrase a lot of putting my feelers out.
Yeah.
Which is just sort of, you're just trying to see what's going on. You don't really have a specific purpose to be contacting people or networking at this point. You're just sort of like, I just want to see who responds to me. And so that being able to learn how to do that effectively through this course could be huge.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually the first lesson is to try to actually get away from the feelers out.
Oh, fair enough.
So the very first lesson, if you want to know, is actually, and I feel like goals are really overdone right now, which sounds silly because everyone has goals.
I'm scarred from co-op, so.
Okay. so I don't know about you guys, but goals just sound so overdone to me. It's like, oh my god, everyone's asking me to do goals about my health, my schooling, my work, my lifestyle. Like, there's goals everywhere. But when it comes to networking, you could do putting the feelers out. But when it comes to using networking for your career, just doing putting your feelers out isn't going to help you as much as if you have a goal.
That's true. So
the very first lesson is, why are you networking? What are your goals for networking? And we're not just going to throw you in the water and be like, tell us, why are you networking? That's lesson 1, just tell us. There's actually a little worksheet that will help you, do you have a career in mind, or a dream career? Or are you just trying to figure out what to do? It's fine if you're just trying to figure out what to do.
Still there.
What things do you not know about that career? Like, what are the big questions that you still have? And then who can help you figure out what those things are, or what things could they help you with, even if you don't have specific people in mind yet. So just those 3 questions will really help you figure out some ideas of why you might approach someone, and then what you can ask them when you get there. So that's lesson 1 basically in a nutshell, and then we build from there. So whether you have no network at all, or you're not really sure what to do with the relationships you already have, that's what this course is meant for. So without further ado, I think we will call this a day. Again, like this video, share the video, or comment some questions for Erica to answer, and we will see you guys in the next live Q&A. See you guys.
Bye.